Шановні
Esteemed participants of our roundtable, the journalists,
я буду модерувати наш.
I'm happy to welcome you here. I will facilitate our today's running table. And as you probably can notice, it is slightly different from we have announced before. And a few words for the beginning. A year ago, it was impossible to imagine the majority of those events which were happening later and happening today. Even the people with the brightest imagination were unable to imagine, to dream that today we will have a round table and interview nominees to the post of the Minister of Health. Here today we have people who have been working for years for the efficiency of the healthcare system in this country, who are eager to build up a patient-oriented healthcare system for creation of a healthcare system without corruption. That is to establish the European-type healthcare system. I think it is symbolic that today we are having this round table when there is the first year anniversary of Maidan events, and I believe that we should work hard to approach to the practice of the European countries. The negotiations as to the coalition agreement are over now, and Ukrainian politicians who have already shaped the Verkhovna Rada have come to agreement as to the direction of the future reforms. There is a special section in the reform devoted to the reforming of healthcare system, and now politicians are negotiating about specific candidates to the posts of ministers in the cabinet of ministers. That's why individual positions and views of the activists as to the future candidates to the posts of ministers is of primarily importance. We should have held public discussions and to develop our vision of those qualifications which the future ministers should have. And then it's my pleasure to give the floor to Dmitro Sheremy. Dmitro, the floor is yours. I think it is symbolic that on this very day, the day of first anniversary of Maidan, we are making an attempt to influence the policy of the governing bodies of the ministry. I'm chairing the patients' organization, and I've been doing this for quite a number of years, and I observed that previous ministers were appointed quietly, without any publicity, without any transparency, and this is the right day today to change this poor practice. We do not wish to be managed and governed this way anymore. We would like to have and to offer our own contribution to the development of healthcare system. That's why we have invited members of this civil society committee in order to discuss positions of the candidates to the Minister of Healthcare. For us, it is extremely important to hear from those people who are going to become ministers, who are running for the post of the ministry. They should state their positions clearly. We would request from them an explanation what they will do working in their position and how many people will be successfully covered by these people. We do not wish to hear how much we will flourish in the 2015. We would like to know how they will oppose and eradicate those corruption schemes existing within the Ministry of Healthcare. We do not wish them to stay in their offices and do everything quietly. We want them to be responsible against us, responsible to us, not just sitting in their offices and doing something which we do not know. We want to make their work transparent and open and understandable to broad public. This will change the system in this country. Okay. This was an introduction, and now we will start an important part of our this is called public interview with the candidates. You have received handouts where there is a questionnaire for the candidates. This is the first document to which I would like to draw your attention. The second document in your handouts, this is a draft resolution of our public hearings, of public interview. In result of our today's meeting, we will either sign it up or change it. We have Mr. Roman Ilek today at this round table. He's member of parliament. We would like to know the politician's point of view. Thank you for this opportunity to speak here on this symbolic day. International experts suggest that if we manage to extend human lives of population in Ukraine at least for 1 year, thus we increase GDP by 0.4%. I think that's important to know for those who are thinking about the growth of our economy. On the other hand, for more than 20 years in Ukraine, we have been observing changing of the name tables on the offices of the different government officials and did not see any progress. I believe that as of today, the healthcare system requires a profound reform, and unfortunately, poor funding of this sphere, that is, it receives up to 3.5% of GDP. There is some technical problem. Some microphones do not function.
Зараз краще?
Some technical problem.
Ще раз пробуйте кілька слів укладати.
Зараз не фонить?
Нормально. Працюємо.
Отже, я зупинився на тому,
I stopped when I mentioned that as of today, the healthcare system requires intensive healthcare itself because this funding at the level less than 5% of GDP results in a fact that life expectancy in Ukraine is extremely short comparatively to other countries. That's why the minister should present the comprehensive set of measures aimed at the healthcare system reform. What should these measures be like? I believe that you, like me, believe that the Minister of Healthcare is a political figure, but nevertheless, the sector itself requires effective manager. Probably it should not be the medical worker or doctor but it should be an efficient manager, and we cannot run the sector without a group of lawyers, economic experts, business experts. That is, the minister will need a team of devoted and committed people, and they should work for the sake of people. Those countries which implemented healthcare reform or are implementing these reforms now they have rather interesting experience. In this context, we should involve also the experience of Baltic states, Moldova. I think we should review the spending of finance in this area and set realistic objectives for the ongoing 5 years. Without this, it would be impossible to move forward. Then we should undertake the audit of taken actions, analyze mistakes, and then move forward. I believe that we should promote development of private medical services because we understand that it shares the workload which is put upon the state health care system and allows to remove excessive financial burden from the latter. Many skepticists believe that this is needed. Are you speaking on behalf of of your party? Yes, I believe that it is important to pass the passage of the law about state medical insurance guarantees a strong healthcare system. Today, there is the initiative of UN on the way, and we can use this initiative to implement this healthcare insurance system. The next step after this very law, there should be establishment of national healthcare insurance company, which should be independent and under the cabinet of ministers. Then there should be passed the list of mandatory free healthcare services. 2 days ago, I came back from Moldova, where I studied experience of the state insurance, Medicare They have been implementing the system 10 years ago. Back in 2004, they introduced this Medicare insurance system under similar difficult conditions than that we have today in Ukraine. They also had corruption. They had many negative factors in funding. They had the same system of accounting based upon the number of beds in hospitals. Without resolving all those issues, we won't be able to move forward. We always will try to understand whether the healthcare insurance system should be of state nature or private nature, and here we should base our reform on the experience of our neighbors. Then, a very important thing is to introduce international standards for treatment of patients. Understanding that we are pressed with time, we should introduce electronic and automated system of data management in the healthcare system. I was positively impressed speaking with a minister of Moldova Healthcare who mentioned that in 2015 the country will reject from medical bulletins which are or leave medical leave certificates which are issued to patients. Because this is the biggest source of corruption. And I believe that our reform should be closely coordinated with those organizations which stand for the interests of patients. Also, my final message is that let us stop deceiving ourselves and pretending that there is a free healthcare system in Ukraine. There is no free healthcare in Ukraine. We should have a list of free medical services, and that's it. I like your final statement very much, and the only thing which I would like to ask you, whether your political force will take into account outputs of today's discussion, whether you have your own candidate for the healthcare minister. I am not ready to discuss this, but Batькivщина faction opposition is as follows. We have finalized negotiations on the coalition agreement, and we are working in the channel of the coalition. And we have agreed about our principal positions in the coalition, and when it will come to the specific candidates, we will act within the coalition, but we absolutely support our today's event. Probably you have noticed that today we have rather new format, and representatives of some political forces are coming and will come a bit later. I'm sitting next to Mr. Pecker, founder of the Vision Project, The New Country. Why he is present here today? Because they have said Medicare is one of their top priorities, and they are also having this competition for the candidate of a new healthcare minister. That is the candidate supported by broad public. I understood that in this context you are speaking about vision, about approaches to this work. Good morning. I would like to provide a bit broader frame. One of the key demands of Maidan was to change of the power system of the public administration system in Ukraine. That is not just to change part of the regions for the People's Front, not to change Yanukovych with Mr. Poroshenko. And today Ukraine is facing the challenge, a lot of challenges, when it is quite clear that without reforms in all spheres of life, in healthcare, education, deregulation, and tax system, and we won't be able to change the life of the country. Actually, we have to break up that vicious cycle which we are following for 20 years. The Russian Federation and its aggression does not give us any time lag. And I believe that politicians and political candidates can never implement reforms. One of the British aristocrats mentioned that the government prominent governmental figure thinks about future generations, while prominent politicians think about today. Politicians are thinking about re-election, and they are trying to implement reforms part by part. And Kaha Bendukids once mentioned that when he started to implement reforms, he was sure that people won't continue to say him hello, and when he found out that they still continued to do this, he understood that he was moving too slowly. That's why graduates of international universities have founded an initiative which is called professional government. That is, we put forward, political forces put forward their candidates, candidates present their agendas, then professional communities vote for those professional candidates, and then provide this opinion to the political forces, and then political forces may continue to bargain between themselves who will become the minister. Sometimes it happens that ministers are political positions, while deputy ministers are technical people, not political nominees. We put forward hundreds of candidates for the professional positions. This was a huge work, and yesterday's night there was final voting for the candidates. I can provide several examples of those people. Some of them are rather well known within professional communities, but are not well known in political circles. These are people who lead public organizations. I won't mention any nominees for the Minister of Health, but nevertheless, I want to say that I will mention two names between whom there is not big difference in scores. Ministry of Justice Yulian Kharucha, Leonid Antonenko, Ministry of Finance Taras Kazak, Min Region Development Olena Shulyak, Ministry of Education Sergei Kvit, Ministry of Culture Vlad Troitsky, Ministry of Energy Oleg Гончаренко, Igor Liski, Ministry of Economy Daniel Politiki, Ministry of Agrarian Policy Vladislava Rudyska, Ministry of Infrastructure Andrei Kuzmenko, Ruslan Korsh. Sometimes the ministries names of ministers are different from what they are in reality. This is because we believe they should be changed. I think this is not the last word. We cannot give the carte blanche to political communities, given their simply names of those candidates. We will go further. We will insist on open TV debates between the candidates for all public positions, not just the candidates to the Ministry of Healthcare post, but also others. We have undertaken necessary steps and negotiations with the TV companies, and we believe that finally we will have transparent rules of the game. Finally, this will be decided on Monday, and maybe next week we will watch open TV debate. Maybe this won't be similar to our traditional TV shows, which are more about personal features of the candidates. We will speak in our debate about agenda, about objectives of the reform, purposes and actions. I absolutely agree with Mitro, who mentioned that a year ago it was impossible to imagine that someday we would be able to do this. I believe that socialism is now demanding an important thing. It is much more developed than political system today. Our objective is to respond to the demands of the society. Let us do politics together. Let us play as one team and do introduce changes. Let us have good candidates and ethical and moral responsibility of a candidate for the agenda. They also should gain expert support during the entire period in office. For example, all the community of financial experts should support the Minister of Finance. Also, the ministers should get political support from politicians, should get support from civil society and continuous control. And while journalists should provide continuous media control, transparency, and openness.
As moderator, I would request you to tell us the names of those who are the candidates to the position of the Minister of Health. In the voting, I do not remember how many candidates were nominated. I remember there were several people, quite many, and I can tell you that according to the rating voting, Kurpita and Bogomolets are on the top of the rating. Others had lower ratings. That was Valery Pekar, Nova Krajina, and I would like to thank you for participation in this discussion and this discourse. And I would like to give the floor to Dmytro Sherimby again, and he will tell us about this analysis, and he will tell how it was all taking place. The algorithm was there was a team of organizations, and they decided to give the assessment to the candidates or nominees to the position of the Minister of Health. We wrote a letter to each political party which was going to the parliament so that they openly, publicly tell who they nominate to the position of the Minister of Health. Not a single political force gave us the answer, with the exception of the Front of Changes, Frontsmin. The Prime Minister said that he believes that Mr. Lazarishenyets should become the minister. There was not another single public source, no statement of any political party about who they see as the candidate. Then we addressed non-government organizations like Ukraine did, and that was we asked about the Ministry of Public Health, and we received the CV of one candidate, and we have the result of the voting, and it ended up yesterday on the platform of Alternative Government, and there are three candidates. That is the acting minister Lazarishenyets Vasil, Olga Bogomolets, and Vladimir Kurpita. These are the candidates that will be considered according to the criteria that we published on our website, so that people can express their opinion on who can be the minister, and also to give advice to political forces, and or maybe to have an open professional interview or participate in open discussions. We do not know on which channel this will take place. We hope this will happen, because then it will be obvious who can become the minister, so that this point of view is taken into consideration when selecting the Minister for Public Health. Valery said that we are for the person who will become the minister to correspond to the requirements of the experts and patient organizations. His ethical, professional side should guarantee us, and we need to understand that we can work as a team with this person. At the civil society, we can make our contribution into the reform of health sector. We do that to unite the efforts in the process of reform of public health, and the result of which many more people will survive in our country. We understand that our proposal means not the marriage next day, but very difficult work in the nearest years that will be not so popular in this country. But all the professionals are ready to do that, so that in Ukraine we have realistic guarantees for health, so that we and our children can use that every day. That is the reason why we started this process. I have some small dilemma. I would like to take your advice. Will we give the floor to some participants of the expert group, or will we proceed with the interview? What do you believe? Shall we have the interview? We are still waiting for the representatives of political forces. If they come, they come. If they don't, okay. Criteria, please enumerate the criteria. Thank you. I am Pavlo Kovtanyuk. I'm the chief editor of the professional magazine Management in the Public Health Sector, one of the initiators of the project, and I would like to mention the criteria that all the organizations agreed on, and these are the organizations that signed this initiative. You see the logos of them on the programs, on the resolution. That is what we want to see in the CVs of the candidates, or what we want to hear from them during their presentations. The first one is no conflict of interest with pharmaceutical companies or related businesses related to medical sector businesses. What we are ready, we are interested not so much in the conflict of interest, but we are interested in the readiness of the candidate to declare about that conflict of interest. If the candidate says, yes, I have this conflict of interest, that will mean that the candidate is open. Then also no ties to any corruption schemes. How do we assess that? We took as an example how Chesna movement was doing it during parliamentary campaign. They were looking at whether this person is in some journalist investigations. That's not the resolution of the court, but such investigations will mean that this is not the person who we would like to be to become the minister. The third criteria is that this person should never before been holding the position of the minister, deputy minister. That is very important for us because now the time is when it is very good to see some new person in this position so that there's no rotation like it was in the past. The fourth important criteria, the team and it's not enough just to say that I have a team, but the person should be ready to say who this team, who these people are. Also, the mechanism of reform of the system of public health and the Ministry of Public Health. The candidate should go with the vision, but not first get the position and then would say, okay, I will do this or that. So he needs to tell us now what he's planning to do, and then we'll check whether he's doing it or not. Also, the higher managerial degree. This person should be a very good manager. It would be great if this is the education on management, the management diploma based on Western standards. Also, it is important to have experience in medical sector. This could be state or private organization for minimum 3 years, and also the person should present some achievements at this position, and also the person should satisfy all the illustration criteria. This will not be assessed by the members of the commission. We invited for that expert who will just give us his opinion based on the law and illustration. That is like a hygienic factor. If the person doesn't satisfy these criteria, this person cannot be appointed to the position of the minister. Thank you, Pavlo. Now, the most interesting for you, we have at least one candidate, one participant of the interview, Volodymyr Kurpita. I would like to say that I've personally known this person for many years, and I respect this person. Good afternoon. This is a great responsibility that I am just by my own, but on the other hand, that's my advantage. And talking about the reform of the system of public health, as the colleagues have mentioned, we need to talk about values which exist in our society, because of the values. A year ago, Maidan rose up, and until we understand that the major value for public health is the person, its dignity and safety, no changes will be happening in our country. Because of that, the program which we prepared together with the Strategic Advisory Group is aimed at satisfying the values or reaching the values, ensuring the values which are basic European values. We now have the program, and it has 6 directions of reforms in public health. This program clearly says what we expect to get into for 6 years. Now we have a big support from the international organizations, those that have been mentioned by Roman, and those that are working in the sphere of health protection. I hope I will get support from civil society, which is looking forward to these changes. And talking about directions of reforms, I would like to mention the following. Undoubtedly, We need to introduce significant changes in the sphere of providing medical services. That is what the life of people depend on, and that is what people expect most. It is also important to answer the question of reform of pharmaceutical sector, because that is something that the society requires most, and that is what, unfortunately, the Minister of Public Health was facing for so long and quite unsuccessfully. We need to talk about changes in management at the national level and also via transferring responsibility to medical institutions. We need to talk about the change of the personnel policy in medicine, introducing professional management in the sphere of public health, and that has been mentioned by the previous speakers. But the essence of reforms will depend on two main key factors. The first one is overcoming corruption, which could be achieved by introducing certain information technologies, because they give an access to this information and they move all the discussion to public domain, and the change of the mechanism of funding the sector, which first of all requires diversification of resources, introducing other resources that could be medical insurance or could be some other proposals. The main thing is whenever the person or the society is making a choice, they have two options: either to look into the past, which is known, and even though that's bad, but we at least have been living with it for a long time, or make a step into the future. The future is always unidentified. We never know what it will be, but only the future allows the society to move forward. And whether Ukrainian society will have enough wisdom, whether we will all have enough wisdom to make a step forward, I believe that we are wise enough and will do that. And I'm ready to work in the team that will be working for the sake of this future. Esteemed future, these are my words to you. So the interview means not just this presentation of the candidate, but also of people who will be assessing, not just Mr. Kurpita, but Bogomolets and Lazarishan. And so please introduce yourself, Alexander Rabchenko, reanimation package of reforms, and your question. Two questions. In coalition agreement, there is an item on optimization of the network of medical establishments. First question is how, and the next one is guaranteed volume of medical assistance, and also the question how to define this guaranteed volume. Thank you. Of guaranteed scope. Very important questions. Answering the first one, we need to indicate the situation. This issue is in the political domain. It's not in managerial domain. It's about the close cooperation with the future committee of Verkhovna Rada and Verkhovna Rada in general as to reviewing the constitution of Ukraine. The norm on not changes in the network of the establishments is stated in Article 49 of the Constitution. And it's not about eliminating these establishments, but it's about optimizing them. There are several models of how this could be done via uniting them, optimizing them, merging, changing their functions, movement from regular type of hospitals to different types of centers, which could provide not just medical services, but social services. And these plans are suggested in the program, which is prepared by the Strategic Advisory Group, and looking at the experience of our countries. And we reviewed the experience of Poland, Georgia, Estonia, Croatia, we see that this change of the network of establishments is possible. It could be either radical, like in Georgia, within 2 years, or gradually, like Estonia, that during 5 years they started the program, but they continue them now, and they have the program as to support of medical workers for 25 years, and they are implementing it now. As to the second question, that is very important for introducing state medical insurance. For that, there are two options. There's an option either providing this basic package for the whole of the society, or to do what the countries are doing as during economic crisis, and what is not popular, defining the groups for who we provide this order. Because I'm convinced that in democratic society, the state cannot be responsible for the health of every person. That is the responsibility of that person. So we need to provide and create possibilities for people to take this responsibility. And this way we need to introduce changes in the system of management of public health. Answering this question and others, I would like to hear a little more about what is strategic advisory group, because not all the journalists know about that. And I would like to hear from you, not just your discussion about this option or this option is possible, but what is your position? Which of the options do you support? First, a few words about strategic advisory group. So in July there was a big initiative of the president and the prime minister, and that was about the implementation of the reform, and that was about creating several strategic advisory groups, SAG, and that was on tax reform, decentralization, economic reforms. One
стратегії Україна 2020 є медична.
And one sector which is in Strategy 2020 is medical reform, and under that initiative there was the SAG set up at the Ministry of Public Health. It was set up with the participation of civil society. Openly, we received about 100 proposals from experts, national and international experts. Now the group includes 12 persons, 5 international experts, 7 national, and the main task of the group was to prepare framework proposals as to the strategy of reforms for the 10 years. This document is ready. From Monday, the group will start public discussion of this document, because we are sure that without public discussion, the passing adoption of this document in the lobbies of the Ministry of Health or just by the SAG is not the correct thing to do, because it's about the life of every person. And using this opportunity, I would like to invite you to discuss it. We will have meetings in Kiev and regions. We'll have internet discussion, and anyone could participate in it. Basically, the coalition agreement has these 2 items, and it's obvious that they cannot be changed without amending Article 49 of the Constitution. As a manager of the group of the reanimation package of reforms, we are already conducting consultations about that with the constitutional group, and will be demanding from the parliament to review this article, because otherwise it is impossible to understand. I have a feeling I will give the floor to another expert, but I believe that we need to create some movement on Article 49. Something needs to be done to Article 49. That is non-popular decision, and it's difficult for politicians to talk about canceling this. Irina Geeva and the network of people living with HIV. My question is to Vladimir. we need to take decision on certain things that were passed by the ministry. For the network, shock therapy is the delay in the process of tenders. Till we basically have a big shortage of medicine now. But I'm talking about the resolution 589 and about the possibility of the ministry to do 100% prepayment. Can you analyze the risks related to that? I believe that the money will be taken out of the country and the patients will be left without the budget of the Ministry of Public Health and without medicine. Do you have any alternative decisions how to behave with pharmaceutical companies so that the interests of patients are taken into account? Because I've been heading for a long time this network of people living with HIV, this question is unexpected. The problem with the supply of medicines is what the Minister of Public Health has been having for the last 10 years. Unfortunately, the ministry is spending a lot of time and resources to do that without looking for other mechanisms on how the demand in medicines could be satisfied. We have the proposals on immediate measures by involving international logistical agencies as to some programs which will allow to resolve this problem of the need in medicines and the most significant programs, vaccination, TB, HIV, AIDS. Also, implementation of package services for chronic patients who require periodical assistance, like those who require dialysis. Also, introducing the real mechanism of reimbursement for the people with high tension or diabetes. Also, introducing the package agreements or framework agreements with pharmaceutical companies. That is, if we are talking about the plans mentioned in the program. Once we're talking about the resolution which will allow prepayment, then in conditions of economic crisis, the prepayment is always defined because it gives the partner the guarantee, but the fact that the prepayment, the length of it was extended from or was changed from that makes us believe that there's possibility of corrupt actions. I believe that the ministry has to again analyze this situation and cancel this resolution, at least the resolution as it is today. Esteemed experts, do you have any other questions to Mr. Krupita? Andrei Marusov, head of the Board of Transparency International Ukraine. I have two questions. First is to Vladimir. I would like to ask you whether you, your family members, your relatives are somehow related to pharmaceutical business. International, Ukrainian, are you founders, are you advisors, owners, and so on? Not just you, but your nearest close circle. Also, have you ever been given a bribe? Have you been ever offered a bribe? If the bribe was offered, then how much and in what circumstances? And whether you required bribes? Briefly. Of course, we're moving towards Europe, but in Europe, the fact of this question would have been the scandal. Okay, first, as Metro was talking about the necessity to state about the conflict of interest, I can say that yes, I had advisory contracts with some pharmaceutical companies as expert, as patient, and now I don't have such contracts, but I had them in the past. To enumerate, these were companies Janssen, Merck Chardon, Abbott, Gilead. Yep, I had that. Even in 2013 and in the beginning of 2014. The second, it's a disclaimer, as is usually done. In this case, I say that I did have such contracts, and I was heading the organization that was partially receiving money for certain project activities in this direction. Talking about bribes, it's difficult for me to answer this question. For 17 years, I've been working as a doctor. Were patients giving me some gratitude? Yes. Did I demand it? No. That is honestly. Microphone. Okay, you were holding quite, talking about Ukrainian network. Well, you were holding quite big positions. You were the head of the department in medical service. When you were at this position, did people request you to help resolve this or that issue, like supply of medicines? Yeah, there were proposals, but I did not receive them. How much did they offer? We did not reach the discussion of the amount because I stopped such discussions in the beginning. Okay, a little bit more and we'll change the genre of our discussion. Gleb Kanevsky, expert of political studies and analytics. I have the questions. First is more professional. We always conduct monitoring of public procurements in the regions. And in the sphere of public health, there was a big problem that there are regional programs at the expense of which, at the expense of local budgets, certain services are financed in the sphere of medical services for HIV patients, including. And these programs are financed in the and they basically are always the last priority, and they never get full financing. The Ministry of Public Health cannot influence this situation now because the Treasury is subordinate to the Ministry of Finance, but the Ministry of Public Health has all this negative because the services are provided by hospitals, but they cannot provide them because they don't get payment for the contracts. And if when you become the minister, how could you influence this negative trend? And the second later, because they're not related, these questions. Yeah, and that is very professional question. The situation is that the Ministry of Public Health is now executing the functions which, first of all, deal with procurements, also accrediting medical services instead of forming the policy. The situation that you mentioned could be corrected if the Ministry of Health clearly states its position and its policy in the sphere of health. And this hasn't been happening for the last 23 years. The ministry has never been following the position they need, that they believe should be the position of the ministry. That discussion should be taken from the offices to public sector because healthcare is of social importance, and then responsibility could be moved to the domain of responsibility of the Ministry of Finance and State Treasury. That does not mean that we need to say all bad things about them, but we need to understand that we have the economic crisis in the country, and all these issues are to be resolved, but the ministry should have its position every decision made by the Cabinet of Ministers should take into consideration the fact how it influences the health of population. The second question, your CV says that for 4 months from June till September 2014, you were heading the State Service of Ukraine on counteracting HIV infection. Why did you stop heading it? The Cabinet of Ministers passed the resolution on canceling several state services, and this state services was among those that are to be liquidated, and also the financing of the central executive bodies was reduced, and that was the reason to at least preserve the salaries to the group of people who are working on liquidation, because financing depends, it's divided to all the people working there. But I continue to support the team of people. We continue to work with them. Now this will be the Department of Public Health created, and it has to take this responsibility. Thank you. Now the journalists. I see that Hanna Hapko has shown up. That is the elected MP. We are trying to turn this discussion. Hanna, we are looking forward to hear your position and the position of your political force about reforming the public health. I'm sorry for being late. For our political force, one of the priority issues is that we have got involved into the process to form the professional government. And you know the position of the Samopomich, which is for we are against the quota approach. We are for the government to be formed according to the professional qualities, and we now see already the results of Maidan quota after Maidan, what it is. And when they suggested me to become the Deputy Minister of Health, I said that minimum 4 people can work in the ministry. They have education, they have manager skills, they are professional, they will be more effective than myself. That was back in March, and now I see when forming the government, this again might be the problem, and it is important for us that the
It's very important to us that the patient communities actually demonstrate some unity in order not to allow another non-efficient manager such an important post in the country which goes through very serious crisis. In our position that the government must consider those people who are professionals, and we are prepared, you know. Well, I'm sorry, yeah. That I'm being translated. I didn't know that. I could speak English. Anyway, we had to translate that. Well, that's why on behalf of our political force, on my own behalf, I would like to say that we are happy to hear the proposals which we are going to have from the, let's say, from the civil society, those organizations, movements, and initiatives who work in the sphere of the protection of the rights of patients, not only patients, but also the physicians, because we consider the reform of the healthcare in a comprehensive way, and we really would like a real professional to become head of the Ministry of Health, but this person has to have an opportunity to form his own team or her own team. With the deputy, if he doesn't have the proper team, or his or her deputies is not going to follow the proper rules of the game, and they're going to follow their own personal objectives, and we know the Minister of Health over the number of years have been the most corrupted one, and they were involved in the corrupted tenders, and etc., and we tried to actually prepare these following tenders and the candidates for the purchase and procurement of the medications. We know that this is a complete failure, which testifies to the fact about the very big gaps existing here and problems existing not only in the healthcare ministry, but the whole general in the government as a whole, which had to work with the Ministry with the patients communities, with the Anti-Monopoly Committee to work together. We have to actually advocate the new approaches in electing and selecting the would-be Minister of Health and his or her team of professionals who would become or could become a part and parcel of this coalition agreement, which is prepared already and within the framework of the implementation of this agreement by the government, the government has to be formed based on the professional approaches. This is very brief format. Thank you.
Є питання від журналістів, чи
Questions to the journalists, or we still have to torture the experts? Okay, please move closer to the mic. Or move the mic closer to you. Good afternoon, Irina, the Coalition of Service Organization. As has been mentioned today, one of the criteria is the preparedness of the candidate to present or to introduce his or her team. Dear candidate, can you do that? Not at this moment, but we have a team. We are prepared to negotiate with other organizations and partners in order to complete our team. I mean, we have the support of a number of organizations today, but I believe, in any case, I absolutely agree with what has been said before, that we have to prepare a team, specifically a team, because to deal with, to lift what is absolutely cannot be lifted today, it can be done by just one person or even a couple of persons. Volodymyr Zhovtyak. I have a very short question to Volodymyr Ivanovich. Let's imagine that the government will heed, and the Prime Minister, the President, will heed to the recommendation and advice of the public, and they will appoint you or nominate you as Minister of Health. But we know that Minister of Health will find himself or herself in a certain system where he or she has to work. Repeatedly over the last years, we've seen how this system actually broke the skeleton of many people, so to say. Are you going to embrace this position, knowing that this system is not going to be reformed? And what kind of the external support you have to have in order to be certain that you will be able to cope with this task? Over a long time, I've been working in many different organizations, including the WHO and the Ukraine organization. Whenever I decide to take this or another position, there it was a result of the bilateral agreements, what I can suggest and what conditions and terms I would like to have. So in this specific case, my consent or non-consent to the proposal depends. For example, I will not consent if, let's say, not for me to consent, to give a consent, I have to satisfy certain conditions, and the people who would like to invite me have to listen to my terms and conditions. You are talking about some external support. We are approaching the major transformation in this sphere, and those transformations must have place in parallel to the changes in different spheres, like politicians, people, etc., etc. And again, some changed informations in the healthcare system, which will never be the case. We would depend on certain proposals which we make, and let's say streamlining the analytical work, which was never the case again, has never been the case before. We concentrated mostly on the statistical data collection and the accountancy. So in the Ministry of Health, this will have to be partially changed, and for this we need the external support. Well, Chestnut movement. Movement chancellors is interested in some formal movement which may not be very much to the candidate to any position, but they could be very important to the public. For example, I have a question regarding your income in your property. Can you give us the figure how much you earned in 2013? What kind of cottages or the cars you possess? Because speaking of positions, you maybe will fill in. People who occupy those positions, they have something taken from this. So I'm talking about your accountability. Are you prepared to report in writing annually to the public or to hold monthly press conferences where you can report to the public what you are doing and what they want you to do?
You have 3 more days to change your Renault to Mercedes. It's easy for me to answer the question about income. I was a civil servant, and I have an official declaration on income I received in 2013. I can say that I cannot say that I'm a rich person, but I'm a known expert, and I was earning in average, sort of an average salary in Ukraine. You can see it on the website of the civil service. I am ready to do it again. There's the car, the apartment. What was it for the previous year? Because after Ghana Gapko, it's not scary to do it, because Anna's tax return was discussed a lot. In 2013, I received a little more than 600,000 hryvnias. The second question was reporting. And I've mentioned that communication strategy, establishing permanent dialogue with the society, which is about press conferences, press releases, and reports, should be the component of the Ministry of Public Health work. We will be trying to train Anna Gapko to know how to apply practices in the parliament. So we'll be asking the question whether you support or not the candidates here, or about possible political action. Do you support those people who are supported by our experts? If no or yes, then say why. Thank you. From the very beginning, Andriy Sadovy was saying that we are ready to address professional environment, who should give their proposals as to the candidates to different ministerial positions. We said that we do not want to become, to get this position, that the MPs of Samopomochy will be making the parliament professional, and as to the government, we are ready to consider the proposals of people if there is an agreement between different communities and answers to all criteria. The person which, besides the team, will come to the Ministry of Public Health, it is very important to have the cooperation with other ministries, because the reform of public health, parallel to decentralization and insurance medicine, will require several reforms with other ministries. And it is very important to have good vision, communication skills, to establish cooperation with other ministries, and that is why I'm ready to take all this package of documents to hear your position if you have finalized the vision, because very often, even among the civil society community, there's no unity, but if professional communities will say, and professional government and patient community, and the doctors' communities will say that we believe that this person deserves to head the ministry, and we are ready to ensure the vision of reforms and the support so that it is a package service. This would be great, because you understand that the system is created so that the person is very quickly neutralized. They do not allow the person to implement the tasks, and we've seen that, and we need to do it so that the person survives and the reform takes place and the country receives some specific results. I have one question that I am asked. How are you planning the salary of the minister will be lower than 600,000 in 2 weeks of the trolling? They are asking, you earned more and now you agree to the salary which is 3.5 times smaller because, well, most ministers became multimillionaires, especially in the Ministry of Environment, Subsoil. That is why they were suggesting you to head this ministry. I would like to answer this question by the words that Mr. Sandro Kvitashvili said, who was the Minister of Public Health of Georgia. He was working in the U.S. and was earning a lot, but he got a phone call and they said, Sandro, your assistance, Georgia needs your assistance. I do understand that the time has come when I'm ready to work for Ukraine, and the issue of financing is very important in the life of a person, but it should not be the priority when it comes to responsibility, to patriotism and honor. And this is my real choice. I worked in civil service. I know how much civil servants earn. That's not the worst situation possible. The pension of my father is much smaller than what civil servants get. I am absolutely grateful. They will even give you the mic. We're talking a lot about salaries of the deputies, members of parliament, civil servants, ministers. I would like to say my point of view using this opportunity. We, Nova Ukraine, absolutely have to increase personal incomes of civil servants. We absolutely have no right to increase the expenditures of the state budget for civil servants. That means that we will have to reduce numbers of civil servants to increase the income twice. For that, we need to twice reduce the number without reducing the expenditures of the budget. But we would have to reduce the expenditures because they are absolutely enormous. And that means that I will have another question to our candidate as to the readiness to reduce the apparatus. And do you understand how? I'm sorry that this is the question and the remark. How will you be doing it? But I can say that knowing pretty well some important ministries, we understand that most people there need to be reduced because they are just putting papers from one place to another. That structure does not correspond to the new missions of the ministries. It's easier with the Ministry of Public Health. They have clear functionality. It's more difficult with the Ministry of Youth. But all this old system of state service has to be broken. We need to take new people for new structures, for new indicators of efficiency to increase their salaries so that we are not ashamed and so that people do not smile like we are. I am sorry for the country that we are now laughing like that. And my question to the candidate is, do you understand what should be the new structure of the ministry? And how are you ready to destroy all the Soviet heritage there? I would like to answer radically, and probably this will not be the case. Now we need radical reforms. Let's put it this way. As a surgeon, in case if you cut it off, it will hurt once, but then it will be easier. If we cut it in pieces, it will take longer. The strategy of reforms that we suggest includes, suggests one section on the change of the system of administration, which talks about what should be the functions of the ministry, and the future structure will depend on the functions. The number of people in the ministry is not that big compared to the Ministry of Economy or the Ministry of Finance. However, we need to say that around the Ministry of Public Health, there are many state companies, state institutions which receive funding from them. That is why the change of the structure should also touch upon this function. We have a clear plan which will be ready to present and to discuss, and with experts as well, and I hope this will be done during the next 2 months. Roman? Again about money? No. The proposal from professional and public organizations, that is very important, and it's important that we've heard the position of that candidate. It's clear. We would like to hear the position of minimum 3 other, and maybe to hear publicly, maybe in the form of debate, listen to them, and we would like to see the team of each future possible minister, of all of them. According to the Constitution, we are the parliamentary presidential country, and for implementation of reforms, whether we want it or not, we need the political will of 3 branches of power, constructive political will. So parliamentary, governmental, and presidential. Unless this happens, and unless we have a clear interaction with the international institutions and civic society organizations, this will end up at the level of discussion of the round table. As to the Article 49 of the Constitution, there's an issue about how to interpret it, what volume of medical assistance is guaranteed, and the explanation could be received when approving this or that draft law, if that is submitted to the Constitutional Court. That was done by the countries of the former post-Soviet space. They were submitting the request to the Constitutional Court, and the court was providing explanations and opinion. Also talking about the reform of the sector, until we pay for the patient who's cured, until we finance the bed, and we have as many beds as in Germany, and we have twice smaller population, that's a huge amount of money that could be saved. If we say today that more than 60% of medical institutions will be closed, that is the truth, and people need to hear that, but that should happen painlessly, because we are paying for the cured patient. There's a patient, we cured him, and we pay for that. We do not pay for the bed, for the pillow on this bed. Okay. Our journalists are trying to leave. Basically, the Constitutional Court has interpreted Article 49. According to this interpretation, everything's free of charge here, and it's easier to amend Article 49 than to change the interpretation of the Constitutional Court. But we see how in the parliament all these forces are now being organized, but passing this or that law, we can still send requests to the Constitutional Court for the interpretation of different provisions. Before I give the floor to the journalists, I want to say that Article 49 is not an only problem of our Constitution. Just to stop this discussion, now the questions from the journalists. There are 3 candidates. Can several people say what this person is able to do? The microphone, please. You named 3 candidates. I will answer. We have a procedure on how we assess the candidates. Today, our task is not to say who is better, but it is important for the society to give assessment to each one of them. We invited 3 candidates to be present today and present their vision and answer the questions to have a better understanding of the criteria. Only Mr. Volodymyr presented it today, and 2 others failed to come. With 2 others, Bogomolets received the invitation after she received the invitation to come here this morning. She said that she cannot be present here because now there's a meeting of a faction. Maybe I'm mistaken. And she was happy that we will interview her according to the criteria. She supports this approach that the candidate should be assessed according to the criteria, not according to the name. Then the candidate, Mr. Vasil Lazarishinets, we also sent the invitation for him, but we did not receive any answer even. So we will assess him based on the resume, on the CV that we have, and we cannot hear his reply. That's the situation with the candidates. In an hour. That is quite a serious work. Every expert in the end of this round table will fill it in, and in a picture you will have understanding for each of the candidates. Transparency International. I asked I asked this question to Vladimir about conflict of interest and about any possible corruption ties. We believe that whether person is involved or not involved to corruption schemes or corruption practices, that is the main criteria of all 8 criteria, if we look at them. It's clear that the minister could be a genius organizer, a genius doctor like Amosov, but if at the same time he's a talented person like Pavlo Lazarenko who can steal from the budget, then we will not have anything good. And we've seen that for 20 years. Dozens, hundreds of thousands of people will be dying because these or those corruption schemes will be operating. What we have done, how to assess whether this or that candidate was involved into any corruption practices. We've mentioned in the beginning that we have the main source of information, that is journalist investigation. That is what in the past or now was investigated by the journalists, investigators, reporters, and the journalists of society have not received answers to some questions. We looked at 3, and the worst situation is with the acting minister with Zarishinets. There were 3 cases. 2009, there was this story with the supply of vaccine against the Tamiflu, the Tamiflu scandal. Lazarishinets was holding a very high position. He was the first deputy minister of public health, and he was involved into decision-making about supply of these vaccines. What the ministry was purchasing was 2-3 times more expensive than the reasonable price. And it would be interesting to ask Poroshenko about that, because he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs then, and there were direct supplies from Switzerland of that vaccine, and it was more or less, or medicine, and it was more or less cheap. They were telling that that's vaccine, but that was the first case, and we have no answer. There was some doubtful scheme, but we do not know what was the role of Mr. Lazaryshinets in that. But this also what's happening this year. When he has become the acting minister, finally they started at least some procurements. If you look at how the procurements were taking place quite recently during the last month, again, we see that most often there are signs that there was a corruption margin in the proposals which were adopted by the Ministry of Health. And these are the questions to the acting Minister of Health, because that is his duty not to allow all these corruption schemes. And finally, today it has been mentioned about electronic register of patients. 2 days ago, newspaper Levy Bereg published materials that the Ministry of Health got involved into some closed practices of creating this electronic register of patients in accordance with the publicized documents. And again, according to the documents, the acting minister Lazaryshinets is involved into that, but it's not clear how who's pushing this electronic register of patients, but the conclusion could be made that if this scheme that is already working in the ministry, if it exists, then this will lead to violation of the rights of patients and most probably to corruption schemes. Because our civil servants, they know how to earn money on different electronic registers and databases. So to sum up what we have seen, we understand that we have many serious questions to Vasil Lazaryshinets, talking about his involvement into corruption schemes. We have very little time left. I have a question. The coalition agreement has an item on full prohibition of the promotion of medicines. Now, Bogomolets came up with the initiative to change it to some limitations. What is your position on that? Is it important, is it needed to prohibit? After what was shown on STB, it's difficult to answer this question. I can put it this way. I'm convinced that in Ukraine, the sphere of pharmaceutical industry is overregulated. And there are many rules which Ukraine invented. There's a very simple way out of the situation. We signed an agreement on association with the European Union. And there's a section on the circulation of medicines. And I believe that Ukraine, having chosen European way of development, should stick to the rules which are applied to medicines in the European Union, including those which are on promotion, on advertising medicines. I believe we can find way out of that situation. That's it? Okay, dear colleagues, dear journalists, thank you And Dmytro Sheрембey will say a few words in conclusion. After we complete our assessment, we will give you the results.
Short request, as we are very much pressed on time, we would like your draft laws in the part of the coalition agreement. Some of you have seen regarding the Minister of Health system. So if you can, please send in or suggest your draft laws so you can consider in our committee, some committees, so that every day be orientated to specific results, so not to lose time. In conclusion, I would like to say that we have created a platform for all honest, resolute, and professional people who decide to embrace high positions in this country, specifically Minister of Health. They can use that and not go through the closed offices. I believe that this is going to be very correct and with respect to the society, civilized, and let's say coordinate with those people who, in the long run, will have to work with the professional and specialized organizations. Once again, thank you very much. Again, the next closing speech. The cockroaches, they are afraid of light. Actually, we have to bring everything to the light, to illuminate everything, to bring them to the journals, to the cameras, to all the projects, all the programs, all the suggestions, proposals, whatever, they know, programs or projects, because cockroaches, they're afraid of light. Let's do that. Thank you. Thanks a lot to everybody at last.